The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 16. An Impulsive Choice. Part 1. At the same time Hans had been sent to bring Roman back, within the castle, following the servant's guidance, Viscount Lawrence and Flora were walking towards the guest room. Flora. Yes, father. This meeting was prepared to undo your mistakes. Be especially careful with your words and actions. I understand. Flora nodded her head with a helpless expression. The day Roman subjugated the blood Fang, the norm that made up Flora's world totally collapsed. Roman Dmitri, who was known as Dimitri's fool, was a greater man than she thought, and the Lawrence family was in such a desperate situation that they had no choice but to cling to the Dmitri family. An impulsive choice that Flora thought was the right thing to do for her life had ruined everything for Lawrence. Now, she understood the reality that her father, who was always kind and gave Flora everything she ever requested, had a reason to proceed with the wedding even after hearing about Roman's reputation of being Dimitri's fool. It was truly sad. Honestly, she didn't regret the fact that Roman was a different man from the rumors, but she hated her own actions for not being able to face the family's difficulties and solve them. How hard has it been for you, father? The appearance of her father telling her the truth about Roman and yelling at her overlapped with the image of him discussing her arranged marriage with difficulty. However, even in that difficult situation, her father hadn't forced her. He had given her a choice, and Flora made her own decision. However, since she couldn't take responsibility for her choices, she had to face her father's anger. It's a problem I have to solve. Not because Roman Dmitri is someone different from his reputation, but because Lawrence needs Dimitri's power to survive the conflict with the Barco family. So, let's accept reality. I'm an adult and can't always remain as Lawrence's flower. She clenched her teeth. Then, they arrived at the guest room. However, there was no host welcoming them. Only a cold wind blew in the spacious waiting room, and the servant said he would return to serve the tea and then left the waiting room. It looks like we will have to wait. This meeting was unscheduled. However, even if he came in the morning without notice, the fact that he had the title of Viscount and was here to discuss the arranged marriage should be enough reason for him to be welcomed by Baron Romero immediately. Regardless, he was guided to a waiting room without meeting Baron Romero or Roman Dmitri. Also, the servant saying he would bring the tea first meant that Lawrence's visit was not pleasant to Dmitri. He sighed and sat down on the sofa. He was determined to accomplish his visit's purpose. Viscount Lawrence and Flora both expected this was how Dmitri would react, so they just drank tea in the silent space and waited endlessly. However, waiting also had limits. 1 hour, maybe even 2 hours. But when even more time passed, Viscount Lawrence's expression began to harden with each passing moment. I don't know how much time has passed. He had certainly reached Dmitri before the sun had fully risen, but now he could see the sun setting outside the guest room's window. They were being blatantly ignored. He understood Flora had made an unforgivable mistake, but it was unreasonable to spend such a long time sitting and waiting in the guest room. Eventually, he reached his limit. It shouldn't be like this. Boiling inside, Viscount Lawrence jumped up from his seat. I'll have to go and meet Baron Dmitri myself. Baron Romero's office. The tightly closed door suddenly opened. With a face flushed with anger, Viscount Lawrence had slammed the door open and entered the office. Then, he spoke reproachingly, Baron Dmitri. What kind of family etiquette is it to keep guests waiting this long? If you were not satisfied with our visit, you could have just told us to return back when we arrived. However, I did not know that the Dmitri family could be so rude to their guests. Waiting for a long time, he was severely hurt. He couldn't even continue speaking properly because of the thought of Dmitri being deliberately retaliatory to them. Tap. Baron Romero put down his pen. He, who had just looked through the payment documents, looked at Viscount Lawrence without the slightest change in the expression on his face. I understand why you are angry, Viscount Lawrence. However, was today's meeting scheduled in advance? I admit that we came unannounced. However, we are only here now because you had turned down our offer to meet with Roman a week ago and then didn't contact us any further. If you had made your intentions clear from the beginning and hadn't treated us like this, I would not have been as much hurt as I am now. How can I dare to humiliate and ignore the Viscount? I just want to convey that this problem only arose because it was an unplanned meeting. A week ago, Roman had gone into closed-door seclusion. It wasn't that he had intentionally avoided the meeting with the Viscount, but it was a situation in which he had no choice but to refuse the meeting, even if he was Baron Romero. But there was another problem. However, Baron Romero's expression suddenly hardened. His calm voice was clearly distorted, and the anger he had struggled to suppress till now finally erupted. Are you this upset after merely waiting until the sun went down? The day Flora visited Dmitri for the first time, Roman came to me and informed me about the breakup. Back then, I was angry at him and asked him to take responsibility. However, even a 3-year-old kid would have known that the breakup was not done by Roman but by Flora. I believed that's how he wanted things to be, so I forgot about that problem nevertheless. I just kept my mouth shut and acted like I didn't know about it. A few days after that, Roman subjugated the blood Fong. But was he happy with that fact? Of course not. His heart pounded while he sat down. He was afraid his precious son might have gotten hurt. Baron Romero couldn't keep his composure until he was informed that his son was fine. And the culprit behind it all was Lawrence. Flora Lawrence. If she had revealed the fact of the breakup herself, there would have been no danger to Roman. We were notified of the breakup without any discussion beforehand. It was Lawrence who wanted the marriage first. However, regardless of our will, we had no choice but to accept a one-sided breakup. However, Viscount Lawrence, now you come to me and rebuke me for not greeting you any earlier. Even though it was a meeting that was not scheduled in advance, you just came here boldly while acting like you hadn't done anything wrong. Slam. His hand hit the table. As Baron Romero rose from his seat, his majestic appearance overwhelmed Flora, who had arrived after Viscount Lawrence. Are you kidding me right now? His expression was ferocious. It clearly showed his hostility towards the Viscount. The situation had taken a turn for the worse. Baron Romero. He had crossed the line. Although he was of lower status in terms of titles, he had no hesitation in expressing his anger towards the Viscount. What did you think this marriage meant, Viscount Lawrence? A marriage between two people who love each other? The union of two families? Such fancy words have nothing to do with this marriage. Due to his contribution to the war, Romero Dmitri was gifted the title of Baron. He was someone who had barely made his way into the world of nobility. However, among the nobles who settled in the northeastern part of the Cairo kingdom, no one could openly ignore Baron Dmitri. Yes, the world is like that. Power and identity both decide where someone stands in society. The owner of the iron mines, Baron Romero, possessed incredible wealth. Due to that, Viscount Lawrence couldn't say anything. Moreover, what the Baron had said was actually true. Viscount Lawrence knew that Dmitri had power, so he made a request to Baron Romero for the marriage between their families. It would have been a real bonus if the marriage proceeded with his second son and not Dimitri's fool, but still, the union with Dmitri was a necessity for Lawrence's future. Due to this, Baron Romero's anger was natural. His voice, which was calm at first, had now turned ferocious as if it would prey on Viscount Lawrence. The Viscount and I are well aware of the essence of the arranged marriage. This is not just a matter of the relationship between the children of both families. The Barco family is aiming for the fertile land of the Lawrence family. As they have already gotten the central government's approval, it wouldn't be unusual for the two families to go to war at any time. A month ago, I was contacted by the Barco family. They said that if we married Barco instead of Lawrence, they would not only give us a connection to the central government but also give us part of the Lawrence estate. Still, I turned down the Barco family's offer. What do you think was the reason, Viscount? Why did you refuse them? The Barco family's proposal would have been much more beneficial to Dmitri. The reason is simple. The Dmitri family has power, so we were able to choose what we wanted. The Barkov family was a dangerous enemy. Holding hands with them meant a peaceful future, but it would be different otherwise. However, those who have power do not need to seek compromise. Roman wanted to marry Flora. He said that there was no one more beautiful than her in the whole world. Due to the sole reason that Dmitri's eldest son admired Lawrence's flower, I decided to go to war with the Barkov family. There was no other reason than that. Even if my decision shed a lot of Dmitri's blood, I just hoped my eldest son would get what he wanted. Refusing the offer of Barkov was undoubtedly a loss for Dmitri. Many people were saying that Dmitri made that choice to enter the aristocratic world in earnest. In fact, even Baron Romero gave a similar reason when he had punished Roman. However, the truth was different. If it had not been for the marriage Roman wished for, Dmitri would never have suffered any loss. Still, he held hands with Lawrence despite understanding the situation. From the beginning, the Lawrence family was the one in a favorable situation, but they did not understand the whole truth. However, the cup had already been spilled. The breakup was a huge mistake. From the time Flora Lawrence mentioned breaking up with Roman, the Lawrence family had already stepped into muddy water. I made a huge mistake. Viscount Lawrence's expression turned pale. He realized it just now. I should have endured it until the end. Even though Roman Dmitri refused to meet and made him wait for the sun to go down, Viscount Lawrence should have maintained his composure until the end. It wasn't a normal relationship in the first place. It was the Lawrence family who had a reason for marriage, and besides, there was no right to be angry since they were the ones who mentioned the breakup first. It was honestly stupid. Due to his low self-esteem, Viscount Lawrence thought that Dmitri was ignoring Lawrence. I ended up making a mistake myself after telling Flora to be careful with her words and actions. Dmitri's anger is understandable. Since we made a fool of them by unilaterally breaking the marriage, we shouldn't have had anything to say about how they treated us. It was a miserable reality. Baron Romero spoke the truth once again. Lawrence's flower and Dmitri's fool. We both know better than anyone else that the reputations of the man and woman do not match. However, Lawrence should have kept in mind who Roman was. Even if the daughter of the Lawrence family is the flower that everyone desires, the moment Dmitri is attached to Roman's name, his value changes. Therefore, it is Lawrence, not us, who hangs on to this marriage and desperately needs for it to happen. Dmitri's fool. A blacksmith house. The nobles looked down on Dmitri's roots, but no one could dare to belittle them out loud. Why? It was because Dmitri had power. Dmitri was considered the head of the Northeast region. Still upset, Baron Romero shifted his cold eyes from Viscount Lawrence and looked straight at Flora, who was standing there without saying a word. Am I wrong? An impulsive choice. Because of that foolish choice, Lawrence's pitiful situation was exposed. Chapter 17. An Impulsive Choice. Part 2. In her childhood, Flora attended a prestigious academy. Lawrence's name, value and wealth were derived mainly from their fertile land. Due to their power, Flora was served by servants every morning, and she quickly developed her skills as a noble. Honestly, her memories of that time were nothing special. However, a memory of her time at the academy came flooding back in that situation. He was from the Joel family. The Joel family were almost imaginary nobles in the Northeast, as only their name was known. In fact, considering the lackluster reputation of their family, admission to a prestigious academy should have been impossible. Still, somehow, a member of the Joel family attended the academy at the same time as Flora. Flora didn't look at him with a particularly biased gaze. She got along quite well with all her classmates. However, not everyone in their class felt like that towards the boy of the Joel family. The fence named Prestige was separating them. Joel was an outsider that nobody wanted to befriend in a world where people considered themselves noble. One day, Joel made a minor mistake. Whenever the children of the prominent families caused a huge problem, nothing happened to them. However, when Joel caused even a small problem, he was severely punished for it. There was even the danger of expulsion. While the teachers were shouting at Joel, a man who appeared to be Joel's father came to the school in dull clothes and lowered his head. He requested them to forgive him just once and promised to make sure his son would be more careful in the future. Looking at the middle-aged person earnestly asking for forgiveness, Flora indirectly experienced the harsh reality of the world. Pitiful. If only the status of the Joel family was great, if only they had power, would Joel's family head need to bow his head? Of course not. It wouldn't have been considered a problem in the first place. They would have taken care of Joel's child just like everyone else. However, since he had no power, Joel's family had no choice but to apologize. And the situation right now wasn't so different. In front of Baron Romero, who was expressing his anger, Flora's father resembled the Joel family head to her. As the family head of Lawrence, I have no excuse for what I have done. What Baron Dimitri said is true, even if it's repeated 100 times. It was I who put forward the marriage proposal in the first place, but my daughter made a big mistake because she was still immature. I should have started by apologizing for my daughter's actions, but I sincerely apologize for making you angry with my negative comments. Viscount Lawrence bowed his head. Lawrence didn't have the strength to handle Dimitri's wrath. The fact that Dimitri was the way to settle the dispute with Barco meant they had immense power. Viscount Lawrence faced reality. He had no other choice but to apologize. Flora felt a twisting knot form in her stomach as the tears she couldn't shed collided with the overflowing emotions bubbling inside her. It's all because of me. Joel. He was a pitiful kid. He was pitiful, so I wanted to treat him as well as possible. However, she was now in the same position as the one whom she pitied back then. It was stupid. I was pathetic. Even when she was in the academy, she showed kindness to others, but with the downfall of the Lawrence family, she realized not everyone was like that. From her childhood memories, she now realized that while looking at the Joel family's situation from a distance, she didn't know what the responsibilities of nobles were. I never thought my father would be treated like this because of me. It's my fault. If I had fully taken on the responsibility of the breakup rather than shifting the blame to Roman Dimitri, we wouldn't have made the Baron this angry. I'm really sorry, Father. I shouldn't have judged Roman so hastily, and I should have taken responsibility for my actions. Grip. She tightly clenched her fist. She had realized the root of the problem was her. Along with that, she realized this problem couldn't be solved with her father's apology alone. Lord DMI. Clack. Lord. It was then. Just as she was about to open her mouth, a soldier came in and announced, "Young Master Roman has arrived." She felt like the situation was getting worse with each passing moment. When Roman Dimitri entered the office, Flora took a deep breath unknowingly. This is Roman Dimitri? In front of her, there was a man who was completely different from what she remembered. Her first meeting with Roman was as bad as it gets. Although it might have been like that because of the public rumors of Dimitri's fool, his unmanaged looks and dreadful perfume made Flora frown. Of course, it was only later that she found out that perfume was out of consideration for her, but even then, she was stricken with prejudice and did not think well of Roman. But now he looked like a completely different person. Roman's gait was charming, and his body gave off a fragrant scent that was not artificial. He had changed entirely from his toes to his head. He now looked taller than before, with his posture straight as a renowned warrior. Moreover, his face, which had plenty of blemishes earlier, was now as white as white jade, and his dark hair and red lips looked particularly prominent because of his skin. Previously, he had a normal appearance, but now he looked good enough to be called handsome. However, what truly surprised Flora the most was the unique aura of Roman Dimitri. It's like meeting a warrior. He looked confident. It's like he's looking down on everyone else and saying he has no reason to be afraid of anything. Right, he was now like a sharp-edged and well-maintained sword. Her first meeting with him was surprising, the second was shocking, and the third was mesmerizing. Just now, she had a thought. She knew it was pathetic, but Roman's figure looked very similar to her ideal type. Tap. He stopped walking. Roman, who was not shaken in the slightest while receiving all the gazes on his body, looked up at Baron Romero and spoke calmly. "I, Roman Dimitri, greet you, father." It had been just 1 week. However, the results of the closed-door seclusion were enough to shock everyone. Even Baron Romero was equally flustered. His son's appearance had dramatically changed. He had a lot of things he wanted to ask, but right now, he had others watching him. So he tried hard to maintain a calm face. "Did you finish your training well?" "Yes, father. We'll talk about that separately later. The reason I called you here is because the Lawrence family wishes to forget about the breakup and proceed with the arranged marriage again. As a father, I have no desire to continue the relationship with the Lawrence family, who took our relationship so lightly, but this problem started with your decision. As your father, I will accept whatever choice you make." If it was a month ago, Baron Romero would have proposed marriage to the Barco family, intending to oppose and retaliate against Lawrence. However, now, he trusted his son. He believed that if he was the same son who subjugated the blood Fong by himself, he would be able to make the right choice for himself. "I understand what you mean." With the awkward atmosphere around him, he quickly realized the situation. He presumed that although they wouldn't have fought in the beginning, after some time passed, Baron Romero lost his patience, and things escalated between the two family heads. The stern expressions on Viscount Lawrence and Flora's faces made it even more apparent. The Dimitri family, which Roman knew, had immense power. He didn't like to cause problems, so he didn't use their family's power often, but Dimitri is by no means a weak family. It was one of the strongest forces in the northeast area of Cairo. Whatever choice he would make, he was sure Dimitri could handle it. Roman said, "I know what the union of Dimitri and Lawrence means. When the Lawrence family considered me as their marriage partner, they didn't want a man named Roman Dimitri but instead needed Dimitri's wealth. In a situation where the Barco family threatened Lawrence, Dimitri's wealth would have ensured Lawrence's safety." "Did you want to go through with the marriage even though you knew that?" "Yes. At that time, I thought the marriage was worth it." At Roman's words, Baron Romero was utterly surprised. He thought that his immature son had thoughtlessly wished to marry Flora. Although he never explained the situation to him, he never thought Roman would grasp the complicated relationship with the Barco family. It was just as Baron Romero had said earlier. Roman had already figured out what was going on just with the atmosphere, so he would choose the right answer himself. The union with Lawrence comes at the expense of Dimitri. As the central government has already approved the Barco family, Dimitri's participation in the war will not cause them to back off. Then, the woman I have to marry should be worth at least that much. Leaving aside our family's benefits, this is someone to whom I need to devote my life to. Of course, Flora is known as Lawrence's flower. However, the very first time I met her, she told me she didn't want to marry me. At that moment, my image of her completely changed. Both the parties for the marriage didn't know each other. The two of them imagined an image of each other in their heads based on the rumors, but it was only an illusion, not the person's real nature. Nevertheless, Flora had made a hasty decision. She thought that the perfume he sprayed out of consideration for her was proof of him playing around with women, and the lousy skin on his face was a look that suited Dimitri's fool. Flora was too hasty with her choices. She believed information she didn't confirm for herself and ruined her relationship with an unwise attitude, even though she hadn't talked to her partner herself. What was Flora thinking before deciding to nullify the engagement? She must have heard the rumors that I was Dimitri's fool, and would have concluded that she could not marry such a person. However, the real problem was her thought process. She was unwise in handling her family's critical issues and judged someone she had never met solely on the basis of rumors. Marriage is about finding one's lifelong partner. I cannot live a happy life with my partner simply because she is pretty or her family is great. What matters is her wisdom. How she deals with the challenges that come her way in life matters a lot. Understanding that gives me the confidence to believe that person and the promise she makes to spend the rest of her life with me. Roman's words were relentless. Every time he said something, Flora's face flushed red, and she couldn't dare to look straight at Roman. She was still young. She made a mistake because she had no experience with the world of nobility, but as it was a serious problem, she could not easily be freed from the responsibility of her choices. I am proud of the Dmitri family. Starting as a blacksmith, my father built the base of the family and crossed the wall of status that others would not even dare to touch. And I wish to marry a woman like my mother, who was always proud and supportive of my father. No matter how the world thinks of Roman Dmitri, I hope to find a companion who believes in what she sees and judges for herself. The question had been finally answered. Roman then looked at Flora. Just as Flora had unilaterally notified him of the breakup in their first meeting, Roman left no room for compromise or retaliation from Flora. Thus, I wish for the breakup to continue without any changes. Now, the cup has been wholly spilled. That's it. The water was now completely scattered on the floor, and there was no way to put it back in its original state. Chapter 18. An Impulsive Choice. Part 3. Breakup. Viscount Lawrence squeezed his eyes shut at those words. He understood that there was no longer any room for compromise. It might have been possible if Roman had wanted them to continue with the marriage. However, he only wished for the breakup to proceed without any changes. It's over. He suddenly got dizzy. Arranged marriage was Lawrence's last option. Judging that he could not stop Barco by other means, he had to use his precious daughter for an arranged marriage. As the head of the family, he was responsible for protecting his family. He thought sacrificing his daughter and marrying her off to Dimitri's fool was better than the downfall of the entire family. But now, the breakup was confirmed. No matter how beautiful Flora is, there is no family that will go to war for a woman with flaws. This was their only chance at gaining an ally through marriage. Now, the crisis must be resolved only with the strength of the Lawrence family. Furthermore, I need to soothe Baron Romero's anger. If he holds hands with the Barcos as a means of revenge, our defense's slim chances of success would be reduced to ashes. Dmitri. Being the head of the family, Baron Romero's wrath was great. If it was Baron Romero, who was displaying his hostility as if he was ready to rally his troops, it wouldn't be too strange to see him unite with the Barcos and take them up on their offer instead. If that happened, it would definitely mean the downfall of Lawrence. If Barco and Dmitri, the strongest powers in the northeast region, united, there would be no way to withstand their attack. The situation had gone from bad to worse. In his heart, he wanted to tell his daughter it was okay. Although the Viscount was a father who always made good choices for his daughter, right now, he was no different from the family head of the Joel family, as, in the current situation, the future of the family was at stake. As the family head of Joel had bowed his head to the teacher even though he was of aristocratic status, Viscount Lawrence bowed his head deeply to Baron Romero. This situation is entirely Lawrence's fault. Therefore, Lawrence will take responsibility for the breakup. And as an apology, for the time being, we will accept neither tolls nor taxes from the merchants of Dmitri who will visit Lawrence. Of course, such a thing would be meaningless to the owner of the iron mines, but please think of it as a sincere apology from the Lawrence family for their mistakes. No, you don't have to do that. Dmitri has no desire to profit from the breakup of my eldest son. Just let the public know that Flora Lawrence has broken up the marriage because of personal issues and end this matter. If you do that, I promise that Dmitri will never unite with the Barcos. Thank you, Baron Dmitri. Thank you very much. Baron Romero's reaction was kinder than he thought. At that sincerity, Lawrence shook his head, yet his heart sank. Marriage to Dmitri was perhaps the best option we could have chosen. Romero Dmitri is a father who truly loves his son. Also, Dimitri's eldest son is completely unlike the rumors about him. How could I waste such an opportunity? I don't know why people call him Dimitri's fool, but from my experience, he is an extraordinary man. He subjugated the blood. Fong by himself. He even boldly revealed his beliefs in front of me. He was so confident while facing a Viscount. In particular, when he saw Roman making choices for his family even in the face of a breakup, he truly fell for him. Roman is an Amugi. If his true worth is revealed to the world in the future, there is no doubt that Flora will be ridiculed for breaking up with him. Right, that's what a breakup is like. From this point onwards, Roman will now be an inseparable label in Flora's life. I wonder if my daughter would have liked Roman if she had known his true nature sooner. Had I known the true value of Roman myself even a little earlier, I would have prevented Flora from making hasty choices. This is my mistake as well. He swallowed his regret. The breakup had already happened. Viscount Lawrence repeatedly apologized, and only left when Baron Romero's expression softened. Now, only Roman and his father were left in the room. Baron Romero's gaze eventually turned to Roman. Throughout the conversation, he couldn't concentrate on the situation because of a single question in his mind. Son. What the hell happened during the past week? Roman looked back at him. There was an issue that needed explanation. During his time in closed-door seclusion, Roman managed to enter the human phase. The human phase created a foundation for demonstrating the divine powers of the heavenly demon martial arts. However, it was not so great by Muram's standards. But in this world, it was a substantial change. The mana floating in nature was abundant, and Roman's body had a deep level of waste, so just creating a foundation had a dramatic effect. With this, the heavenly demon adjusted to Roman's body completely. The fact that his appearance changed due to metamorphosis was evidence that he had become a completely different person from before. Roman said, "It seems I had a realization while practicing alone. I don't remember exactly how, but it seems that now, there is a mana cycle going on inside my body." Did you just say a mana cycle? Yes. Huh. Baron Romero was surprised. A mana cycle was a rare phenomenon that occurred among people who dealt with mana. If one managed to achieve it, mana would naturally circulate throughout the body and turn it into its optimal state. It was so incredible that only a few people could do it. Roman had thought it would be the best answer, but Baron Romero's thoughts became more complicated due to that. A mana cycle. Recently, Roman had shockingly changed fundamentally. Baron Dimitri's son, known as Dimitri's Fool, suddenly announced the breakup of the marriage. After that, he started doing things the Baron wouldn't have even imagined before, like subjugating the blood Fong. In particular, he could not comprehend the victory over Chris, known as Dimitri's prodigy, in the duel and the mana cycle he mentioned just now. He felt like he didn't know his son. He had clearly seen him grow up and knew what sort of things his son liked doing. But now, rather than calling him a genius, it'd be more appropriate to call Roman's changes unfathomable. However, nevertheless, it's clear that you are my son. His face, eyes, and voice that called him father were still that of his son. Due to those things, Baron Romero buried the doubts. He didn't know what changed Roman. However, for Baron Romero, only the fact that Roman was his eldest son was important. Baron Romero said calmly, "As you go forward, be sure to keep this one fact in mind, my son. I am your father. As your father, no matter what difficulties you face, I will stand by your side and face them with you. And I am also the person who will eagerly await and celebrate your development. So, never forget that your name is Roman Dimitri. I, Romero Dimitri, will always support you to achieve your goals and become a better person." Hearing his father's words, Roman felt something unfamiliar stir inside him. This was something unfamiliar to the person known as Baek Jun-hyuk. The father he remembered was cruel and cold-hearted to the point that he wouldn't hesitate to drive his sons to their death. However, the father in front of him was completely different from his original father. Not bad. Is this what fatherly love is? Roman laughed. Thank you very much, father. When he left the office, Roman encountered a familiar situation. Flora was waiting outside for him, just like when she had visited Dimitri for the first time. Back then, Flora had said, "Are you crazy?" with a bewildered face. but now, she bowed her head with a different look. I'm extremely sorry. It is I, who judged you hastily, and made decisions on important family matters on my own. Flora was bowing in front of him. Due to the previous circumstances, she couldn't even look straight at Roman. There is no need for an apology. Nevertheless, Roman's reaction was cold. Revenge? It wasn't something like that. Roman truly felt that an apology was not necessary. Everything that happened was just consequential, and Flora's choice was not wrong. If it hadn't been Baek Jung-hyuk, who now possessed Roman's body, Roman truly would have been a man worthy of being called Dimitri's fool. He already knew the past Roman's will was so weak that he would commit suicide if he were even a little cornered. Attaching themselves to Dimitri through marriage would have immediately solved the problem for the Lawrences. However, as a woman, it would be hard to spend the rest of your life with someone like the past Roman. Because of that, he understood Flora. Moreover, there was no reason to express his anger towards a woman who had decided to take responsibility for her mistakes. However, as Flora didn't know what Roman was thinking, she interpreted his reaction differently. I fully understand why you are angry. You can't help but be angry. Even though it was an arranged marriage where the feelings of the partners were not important, I unilaterally broke the engagement. Still, I just wanted to tell you one thing before I went away. There was a special reason I decided to break the engagement. Roman didn't show any particular reaction. He just stood still. To Roman's staring gaze, Flora spoke in a low voice. Honestly, now I think it was just a rumor. It's not a rumor that suits someone who subjugated the blood Fang by himself and didn't lose his morals. Still, I'm telling you because I think you need to know. The source of the rumors was a social gathering led by nobles in the northeast area. When rumors spread that I was going to marry Dimitri's fool, the nobles I knew told me that Roman Dimitri was a drug addict. Moreover, he used the kind of drugs that would make him lose his senses slowly. Hearing things like drug addiction, I couldn't forget what they told me. It was the first time Roman had heard that. Still, he remained quiet. Roman was neither flustered nor did he show any particular reaction to Flora's words. Eventually, Roman said, "It doesn't matter that you notified me of the breakup for some reason, Flora. You did not want to marry me, so the only choice was to break up." When they met for the first time and even now, Roman did not allow Flora to get closer to him. "So don't get involved in my life anymore." Roman spoke coldly and moved forward. That was the end of it. A woman like Flora had no right to be inside Roman's fence. On his way back to his room, Roman was lost in thought. Flora and Viscount Lawrence. Although he had sorted out the troublesome relationships with them, before returning to Lawrence, Flora had said something he could never ignore. A drug addict. His eyebrows twitched. Doing drugs was an issue that could not be overlooked in Roman's life. Even when he was living as Baek Jung-hyuk, Roman killed all demonic cult members who did drugs. They did not simply plunge their own lives into the abyss of evil but polluted everything around them like a disease. How did Roman get into such a dangerous thing? This meant that Roman's suicide, which was the beginning of a new life, had to be interpreted as having a slightly different reason from now on. Roman may not have committed suicide simply to avoid enlistment. In fact, there were a lot of puzzling parts from the beginning. He himself would have known that he could solve the military enlistment problem with the arranged marriage to the Lawrence family, but he took the extreme step too early. This means there were other reasons for his suicide. Roman suddenly laughed. Roman had recently undergone a metamorphosis. So, no matter what Flora said, he knew that Roman's body had no bad energy that could be from an addiction to drugs. Of course, he did have impure energy, but the heavenly demon presumed it was due to suicide. It was wiped out recently when he underwent metamorphosis anyway. Nevertheless, this meant the rumors that Flora had told him were evidence of slander. How interesting. There is something people misunderstand. Just like when Roman put Hans inside his fence, he acted the same in his previous life, and people said he might be a holy warlord when they saw the heavenly demon ruling over people. That, of course, was a huge misinterpretation. If they saw his behavior from the eyes of his enemies, Roman always trampled on them and condemned even the smallest things. He was far from fair to them. The survival of the fittest, that was the way of the world he once lived in. In that world, it was natural to press down on others from the top, and the fear engraved in their bones became the basis for the subjugation of the Murim. I need to check the facts. Ding ding. He rang the bell immediately. I should ask him. Did you call for me, young master? The first person in this world to be inside his fence, Hans, carefully opened the door.